What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this episode of Outside the Arena. I'm Griff joined by my co-host Rob Goldberger, and today we are back with another week of NFL predictions. It's week 2, Sunday. NFL football will be on today. Very exciting. We saw a great Thursday night game between the football team and the Giants. Washington pulled out in a game-winning field goal. Very exciting game there. But first, we are going to go back and recap some of the games from last week. So just real quick, I'm going to share my screen just so we can have a better look at the box scores, the scores themselves, and whatnot. So week 1, very interesting week. We saw a lot of upsets. Actually, while we talk about week 1, I got my prediction sheet right here. Last week, I predicted 10 of the teams that would win, right? Rob predicted 8. So I am up in our season contest 10-8 so far. So I'm ahead, but it's close. But yeah, there were a lot of upsets, some games we didn't pick quite right here. The Texans was a real surpriser, 37-21. They came out very strong. Eagles, I picked, you didn't, obviously, but they look very good. And since you are a fan of the Eagles, I'll let you talk about this one. 32-6. I mean, this was a blowout. Jalen Hurts looked phenomenal. Devonta Smith looked great. And the Eagles defense looked really good against, Falcons offense that is supposed to have some serious weapons on there.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game was really one of the trenches for the Eagles because, I mean, they dominated that Falcons line. I mean, those two teams, those two units didn't even belong on the same field. And then the offensive side of the ball, Jordan Mailata so far living up to his new contract. And, it's exciting stuff. If both line, I mean, we're going to play through our lines as was, our plan before the year. And if we can keep playing like this, man, I know it's the Falcons, but there's reason for optimism there. There really is. And, a guy that the league is going to have to look out for years to come, in my opinion, is Kenny Gainwell. I think he's a guy that can really play. Was very productive in his first NFL game as both a pass blocker and as a, receiver and a runner. And I think, like I said, Birds, I think, could have one of the best defensive lines in the league, and they dominated that Falcons defensive line. And, Hargrave, Cox, and Graham really dominated that Falcons offensive line.
Yeah, it was a big win for the Eagles. Obviously, you mentioned hope. I mean, in the NFC East right now, I think the football Giants are, really the worst team there, to be honest, at this point. They look good on Thursday, but they always kind of play good against Washington. It's a little weird, but, the Eagles came out really strong. They shut down the Falcons offense. Matt Ryan was a non-factor. Their run attack was, not really that strong. Calvin Ridley, only 5 catches, 50 yards. I mean, this is a guy who I thought had a very good chance to lead the NFL in receiving. So to shut that player down to only 50 yards and 5 catches is pretty good for when your secondary is not expected to be, the strong suit of that defense. Jalen Hurts, he looked fantastic. He can do it, in the air and on the ground. I mean, he is, looking at how he played that week, last week, if he can, carry that over against some, legit defenses and whatnot. We saw some flashes last year, but if he can really put it together, I mean, this kid has the potential and the tools to be, a top quarterback right now. The key right now with some of these top quarterbacks is versatility and being able to scramble. And Jalen Hurts has both of those things, and he does them as good as anyone in the league. So you look at that and you say, if he can get the passing down, become, very good passer, I mean, this is going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league. So very good to see him having success. And the run attack, Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell. Miles Sanders has struggled a little bit over the years, so we'll see how he kind of does against a better matchup. But, a good first start, some confidence at least to start the season for him, which is always a good thing in the NFL. Moving on to the next game I want to talk about, Steelers-Bills. We both picked the Buffalo Bills here. We both thought this was, no way the Steelers would pull this one out. It was a very weird game. Big Ben only 188 passing yards. Najee Harris didn't really get it going. He struggled against a very good Bills defense. But on the flip side of the ball, the Bills also really didn't get it going on offense. I mean, you see the numbers. Devin Singletary did rush the ball very efficiently, but Josh Allen, only 270 passing yards, 1 touchdown. They turned the ball over. They had a blocked punt return for a touchdown. There was just some sloppy football in there. It was not their prettiest game. I didn't want to do that, but not their prettiest game. I mean, what were your thoughts on this one? For me, this one was a really weird game, and, the Bills just honestly just did not play up to par, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, this might feed into some of that Josh Allen regression hype that, we've been seeing all off season. I'm not sure if I'd, go that far, but I think, there are some serious question marks for the Bills as well as, maybe the Steelers might be a little better than we thought. I mean, from Josh Allen's standards from last season, he certainly didn't live up to them. I mean, Minkah Fitzpatrick was all over the field in this game. I mean, he was dominant. He looked like, he one of the best safeties in the league, like he's branded to be, like he's getting paid to be. The Steelers team is going to live through their defense because Big Ben, despite that W, he still looks like a corpse. There's some throws where you say, why is this guy not sitting on his couch either, broadcasting plays or just watching it home from Sunday? But if the Steelers defense, I mean, it's the same thing as last year. If that Steelers defense, can hold up, then maybe they do have a shot in the North. I still think the Browns and even the Ravens might be a little better, although the Ravens, they looked a little questionable last week. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just don't know about the Steelers and with, Big Ben as their quarterback. I don't know if he's, good enough to carry them to that division title that they want.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a case of people forgetting about that Steelers defense and how that is the true best part of this ball club. And that's where, their top players really are. You have TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, you have Devin Bush, you have Cam Hayward. I mean, there's a lot of names on that defense that are high-end elite NFL players. So people need to stop disrespecting the Steelers just for that. To be honest, I am still not as high on the Steelers. I think this team is still probably the third best team in that division. Maybe they're closer to the Raiders than we thought, or the Ravens than we thought. But I do think the Browns, I would still put in another tier. We'll talk about the Browns game in a second. But Najee Harris, for me, I mean, this was a slow start, but I think Najee Harris is going to pick it up, especially against some of these worse teams. I mean, the Bills are, in terms of top defenses in the NFL, the Bills they're right up there. So this is one of the harder matchups you're going to see for Najee Harris. And he kind of had, he had an 18-yard rush, I know, at the end of the game. So he started to get a little more comfortable. But, it's a tough NFL matchup for your first game. I think this week against the Raiders, I believe they play, this week will be a much better test of Najee Harris and how they plan to utilize him. I feel like they stayed away from him at parts in the game, and he still ended up with 16 carries. So that shows you this guy is going to be rushing the ball a lot here, which I'm excited about. And for the Bills, I kind of touched on it a little bit, but we'll move on here. But yeah, Josh Allen, not his best game, but it's against a tough defensive unit. We'll see what he can do this week. But we did mention, I mean, I guess, which game do we want to touch on? I'm going to say we touch on the Cardinals and the Titans, the Bengals, Vikings. I mean, it was a great game, but I feel like those teams are not necessarily, we'll see what happens next week, but we do have limited time. So Cardinals, Titans, and then we'll go to Browns, Chiefs. So Cardinals, Titans, I mean, you had the Titans. I know you said they were going to be your division winner. So, I do want to get your thoughts on this, but the Titans, I mean, they just came out flat. Derrick Henry, not really doing too much. AJ Brown, Julio Jones were non-factors almost in this game. Ryan Tannehill didn't look good. And on the flip side, Kyler Murray looked like an MVP candidate. D-Hop looks fantastic. Kirk looks fantastic. What were your thoughts on this game? Your thoughts on the Cardinals? And then also the Titans, has your opinion changed at all with them?
I still think the Titans are going to win the division, but I think that division might not be so great, as evidenced by the Colts' performance over the weekend. I think the Cardinals look fantastic. Obviously, that's an undisputable fact. But that Titans defense is really not good. We saw it last year. Those are the biggest question marks heading into the year. They even lost pieces, that even kept that defense from completely sinking, and that defense was almost. I mean, it looked like a college defense out there. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray, I think, were almost operating on sort of a different level than that Titans defense. And then on the flip side, the Titans offense, I'm actually really not too worried. I think Chandler Jones had one of those once in a lifetime performances that, they talk about in documentaries in 50 years. But I think the Cardinals are much better than I thought they were going to be. And I think the Titans, on the defensive side of the ball have a lot of question marks like they did heading into the season.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are, a team that I gain a lot more respect for, and I think they're going to be a lot better than I thought. I think Kyler Murray's key, and he looks like he's going to be an MVP type player this year. He was fantastic last week. I mean, he had 5 total touchdowns. He can do it on the ground, in the air, like we said. But Jalen Hurts, that's kind of what you need to do these days. And, Kyler's been a better passer than Hurts, but, struggled. He's been a little inconsistent at times. So it's going to be about putting consistency together. D-Hop, I mean, he was very good in this first half. They kind of a non-factor in the second. They kind of just, let him relax and whatnot once this game got out of hand. And on the Titans side, I mean, look, I mean, Derrick Henry is kind of the backbone of that offense, no matter what Julio Jones or AJ Brown has to do. He couldn't get it going. Game script didn't favor him, but Derrick Henry, I mean, he didn't look amazing. I'll be honest. There were some goal line carries in there where, he couldn't get it in, and you just would never used to see that with Derrick Henry. So it was a little concerning. I know this Titans O line is a little banged up right now, not the best also, but Derrick Henry is going to have to be good if this team really wants to compete. And on the flip side, AJ Brown, Julio Jones, I'd say even regardless of the score, it was a little disappointing to not see one of these guys really get involved. I mean, I think AJ Brown looked good. Julio, to me, I mean, 3 catches, 29 yards. That's not good. You got to find a way to utilize these guys more, especially against the Cardinals secondary that, isn't amazing. I mean, they do have Budda Baker, who is one of the premier safeties in the league. Cornerback group's a little young, but I don't know. It was disappointing for the Titans. And on the Cardinals side, just a very well played game. And another game that was a very good game was the Browns and the Chiefs. Cleveland came out very good. They were up 22-10 at half. It was looking good for them. And then in the second half, they just couldn't get it going. Obviously, you see the stats. Baker Mayfield, a much better game than the box score necessarily demonstrates. I mean, I think the 21 completions for 300 yards kind of shows that. Just that one turnover at the end when he was getting tackled, tried to throw the ball away, couldn't get it out. Very unfortunate there. You see the Browns run attack from the score. Elite as usual. That's what they run through. No Odell Beckham. He still won't be active this week, so they're easing him in. And then the Chiefs, their offense as usual. Pat Mahomes, just absolute domination. What do you expect? Nonetheless, this Browns defense did good at containing him in the first half, but in the second half, you just can't do it. Tyreek Hill, 197 receiving yards. Just ridiculous. Travis Kelce, 2 touchdowns. I mean, this Chiefs offense, it's just ridiculous. And on the Browns side, I mean, it was a well-played game, but ultimately they just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, to me, this is sort of a game that underscores how dangerous the Chiefs really are, because the Browns played well. I think the Browns played really well. I think they did. I think Baker had a good performance. I think the offense played really well as a whole. I think that was a really impressive, showing in Arrowhead. And despite all that, despite them maybe playing one of the best all-around games I think I've seen from the Browns outside of last year's playoffs, the Chiefs got it done anyway, just off the back of Patrick Mahomes, just because he's so unbelievably dominant and good, and he can score so quickly and flip the momentum in the game so quickly, because the Browns were front running for a lot of this game. Up until the Chiefs, sort of took the lead in the second half and sort of kept the Browns down. But I think Patrick Mahomes and Hill and Kelce are just unbelievable. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe add, that wide receiver too that they've sort of been lacking for the past couple of years, just to shore
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. I mean, this team is fantastic. I don't think they can go understated. I mean, the defense, they played how they kind of will. Pat Mahomes just as MVP as usual. The one thing I will say with the Chiefs offense, the run game is still lacking. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire really wasn't impressive, only 3 yards a carry. If they could get that going, then you're really achieving a level of, I think what the Bucs offense is on, where they have an elite passing attack and then an elite rushing attack, in my opinion. Maybe not elite. They don't have a superstar, but they've got a bunch of guys there that fill their distinct roles and get the job done. So I think the Chiefs just could use a little more boost. I know it was a rough game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we'll see what happens with him. But like you said, Baker Mayfield, good performance. Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it pretty well. It was just a tough game for the Browns to lose. That punt at the end where Jamie Gillen fumbled really kind of screwed up momentum and whatnot. So tough there. But good showing from both teams. I still expect these two teams to be the top 2 teams in the AFC, especially after the Bills' performance. I think the Browns are better than the Bills. So, yeah, tough showing, tough loss for the Browns, I should say, but good showing from both teams. And I think we can touch on these games real quick. Real quick, Saints-Packers. I mean, there's not much to talk about. Saints, they looked good, obviously. They got it done with the Packers. My question to you, are you worried about the Packers, or do you think this is just one of those games where just they couldn't get it done and you think they'll pick it right back up this week?
I'm not too worried about them, but I'm not really too sure if they can compete with the other elite of the NFC, because I think they'll get into the playoffs fairly easily. I think they'll win their division really easily, because I think it's a really bad division. But my only word for them is, if this trend sort of continues, will Aaron Rodgers mentally check out? Has he already mentally checked out? I mean, he's the guy the offense revolves around. He's the MVP of the league. And if we know how his mind sort of works, if he checks out, obviously Green Bay is pretty screwed. But I'm not too concerned with the Packers. I'm very intrigued by the Saints, because I think a lot of people were counting out the Saints before this year. Jameis isn't the guy. He's just a placeholder. They'll be, 9-8, 8-9 this year. But this is a team that looked like they had very few weaknesses. I mean, I think that defense is very, very underrated. And I think their offensive line is still absolutely excellent. When you have a guy like Kamara, it takes so much stress off of Jameis. And, I mean, Michael Thomas is obviously going to take a while to get back to ease in from that injury. But once he's there, I mean, the Saints could, they could cause some serious trouble in the NFC. I still don't know if they're as good even as the Packers or the Bucks, but I don't know. Maybe they could cause some, some damage in the playoffs if they get there.
I definitely think they established themselves as a playoff team in this game. I think that's kind of what they established. I think there were still some people who were a little skeptical. I mean, the NFC, this team should have always been a playoff team, but, I think they really established themselves as a really good team, to be honest. And I was impressed by Jameis. He looked good. He did what he had to. They leaned on the run when they had to. And the receiving wise, they don't have really any superstars. Kamara only 3 catches, which was a little surprising, but Jameis spread the ball. He got, he didn't force it. He didn't turn the ball over. And that's the key with Jameis. I mean, the turnovers were what prevented him from being elite. And he didn't turn the ball over, and he had 5 touchdowns. So it's going to be fun to see what happens. Real quick on the Packers, because I do want to talk about that Monday night game. I mean, I'm a little worried. I can't say you can't not be worried after they get blown out like this. It was not a good game. The Saints defense, they lost a lot of guys. They did play well, but this Packers team should be able to kind of carve it up. I know they're without Bakhtiari, I believe, right now, so that is going to hurt you a lot. But we'll see this week. This week will really be a true test. And to see if this is going to be an outlier in the season, or if this is not an outlier, in which case, then that's a serious concern. But we'll see what happens. They do need to get that run game going, though. Aaron Jones, 5 for 9. They really started to not use him. I know the game script really didn't help, but, he's got to be better. So we'll see what happens this week with the Packers. And then lastly, Raiders-Ravens, before we talk about Thursday night, and then we'll go into our last week predictions. This was a very good game. Went to OT, obviously, where we saw the Raiders get the ball on the 1-yard line. Then they they didn't get it in. Then they had a penalty, and then they turned the ball over. Then the Ravens got it. They're marching. They turned the ball over, and then the last minute touchdown to Zay Jones. Really good game. I mean, the Raiders didn't look great in the first quarter, but then they turned it around and they played really well. Josh Jacobs was out this week, had 2 touchdowns. Derek Carr ended up having 400 passing yards, over 400 passing yards. Darren Waller got, I think, like 20 targets or something ridiculous. This guy gets, is going to be a machine this year in fantasy. What were your thoughts about this game? For the Raiders, were you impressed? Do you think the Raiders could maybe make a playoff run? And I think I said the Raiders, that was for, obviously, and then the Ravens. I mean, just thoughts on that, and what you think about them.
I think Lamar still has very little help. He didn't play his best game, obviously, some ball security issues, but I mean, the concern for the year was coming, is the offense around Lamar enough? That was the question last year. And so far, I mean, it doesn't seem to be the case. Pretty intriguing game from Hollywood Brown, though. If he can keep this up, they might be able to beat some good teams. I mean, I don't really know. I don't know if I've reached a verdict on either of these teams yet, because this game is just so crazy. If one different thing and be, switched, we could be talking about something completely different right now. I think it was a good win for the Raiders. I think obviously there was a lot of luck involved. I don't really see them competing with the Chargers and the Chiefs in the AFC West, because that might be the best division in all of football as of right now. I just don't know if the Ravens are good enough is the thing. I don't know if they're good enough to compete with that, top tier of teams in the AFC. I'll just say the Browns and the Chiefs. I don't think they're as good as either of those teams. I think the offensive line is much weaker than it's been in recent years for the Ravens. And like I said, I don't think the Raiders are a great team. And I don't know. This is a bad loss for them. This is a bad loss for the Ravens.
It's interesting because we did both predict the Raiders. I feel like we kind of both felt like something weird would happen. Like, this is kind of one of those games where you could kind of see something weird coming from the Raiders and like a win coming. The Raiders are a weird team. That's what I'll say about them. They're going to have games where they win that you don't expect them to, and then they're going to have losses that they should have won. And it's kind of a weird team. It always has been with Derek Carr. We'll see what happens. I mean, Josh Jacobs was banged up this whole game. He did end up getting 2 touchdowns. It was really key for them. He's going to be out this week, but I think that run attack with him is really going to be key with Darren Waller. They've got weapons on the offense. There's no question. The defense played pretty well. Carl Nassib had a very good, forced fumble at the end. And then, Max Crosby cannot go unmentioned as well. He had a very good performance, 2 sacks, a lot of pressure there. For the Ravens, before we jump to Thursday Night Football, it's a bad loss, one they can bounce back from. Tyson Williams looked very good, 9 for 65. I know he had that big run, but he was also a threat in the receiving game. So we'll see how they continue to utilize that running back group this week. Hollywood Brown looked good. The one thing for me that I was just confused about is Mark Andrews. Why does this guy have 3 catches when he's arguably the best pass catcher on that offense? You just gave him a $60 million extension almost, and he had 3 catches for 20 yards. That makes no sense to me. I know they guarded him pretty well, but Lamar's got to do a better job of finding guys like that, because we mentioned he has no target weapons, but when he has one of his best weapons on the field, he's not throwing the ball to him. So a little confusing there, but the Ravens, I think I've always kind of said, I'm not as high on them as everyone else. They'll be a playoff team, but can they be, a NFC or AFC Super Bowl team? I don't think so right now. All right. Thursday Night Football, before we get into our predictions for the week. Very good game here. Giants, Washington football team. So many things to digest. We obviously had a dropped touchdown by Darius Slayton in the end zone. We had the game-winning field goal missed, but then it was called offsides on Dexter Lawrence, which if you really look closely at it, who knows how it's very close. I still have no idea what the right call is there. And then Dustin Hopkins nails the game winner. So very good game. Saquon Barkley looked better than he had in his first game. And for Washington, Taylor Heinicke looks kind of legit, to be honest. He looked very good. I was very impressed. What were your thoughts on this game, Rob, and your future thoughts on both these teams after week 2?
I think both of these teams are pretty bad. I have to be honest. I think the Giants are awful. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this. I actually felt bad for Daniel Jones behind that, disaster of an offensive line. I mean, I'll give them some slack. They got starters. They have starters injured. One got injured in the middle of the beginning of the game. They're actually pretty good in the second half, but that first half, that offensive line was abysmal. I think that Washington defense really didn't look as good, hasn't looked as good throughout 2 weeks as everyone said it was going to look. I think, you got guys like Montez Sweat and Chase Young. That's all great. But that secondary is kind of weak. I got to tell you, I mean, it's looked weak. They played Justin Herbert week 1. Okay, maybe, a guy like Justin Herbert you can expect to be shredded by. But Daniel Jones sort of, he had maybe his best game in the NFL against this, large Washington defense. I think both of these teams are bad. I think the Cowboys and the Eagles are going to end up competing for this division. I still, would say the Cowboys might win this division by 3 or 4 games. I think the Giants are really god awful. I think they're so I think it's funny, for a coach who makes up all these things about being disciplined, has all these unorthodox rules about discipline. It's potentially one of the most undisciplined teams I've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, good for Taylor Heinicke. I'm happy for the guy. It's a pretty crazy success story. He was brought in as the practice quarterback. And listen, outside of that pick, he really looked good. He looked clutch. Was he lucky? He got a couple chances? Yeah. But it's all about taking advantage of, of luck. It's a really cool story. I'm glad he won. But I really don't think, Washington's any sort of long-term contender after this game.
I think this is a big game for Washington to win. I think if they lost this, they'd be in a really bad spot. Being at 1-1, at least that's, you kind of salvage that, 0-2 is not a place you want to be. I think Heinicke looked really good. I think the defense, it's just going to take a little time maybe to get used to it, to, get some rust out. They definitely don't look as strong as they have. The secondary did not play well in this game. We'll see what happens. But for me, Washington, the big thing was Terry McLaurin in this game, and finally the usage this kid deserves. He is easily the best player on that offense. I know Antonio Gibson is good, but Terry McLaurin right now is the best player on that offense. And we've just seen over the years, they just do not use him as he should be. We saw even in week 1, Ryan Fitzpatrick didn't target him while he was in. He had 4 targets and he had 4 catches. This game, he had 11 catches on 14 targets for 170 yards and a touchdown. And you just look at it, and he looks so talented. James Bradbury was getting cooked up the whole game. He was, that's one of the top corners in the league, supposedly, in James Bradbury. And he looked very bad in this game on Terry McLaurin. So I'm very impressed by Terry McLaurin in the game he had. I think Taylor Heinicke really likes him. He forced the ball to him a lot. Antonio Gibson looks so good. I mean, this guy just touches the ball, and it's like 5 yards guaranteed. Just needs some red zone work. I know J.D. McKissick stole that. That's tough on fantasy owners. But Gibson looks good. This offense looks good. I mean, that touchdown pass to Ricky Seals-Jones was incredible. That was one of the best passes of the game of the week, probably. Very good pass. So I like the Washington offense, to be honest. I think the defense was the problem in this game for them, which is kind of weird because you think it'd be opposite.
Right.
And on the flip side, Danny Jones, like you said, one of the better games in his career, passed the ball really well, was pretty effective, ran the ball really well as well. I mean, almost 100 rushing yards. It was weird to see him like that elite, but that's kind of how they're using him, and it's working. He has been very, very good at running the football. So it's kind of a part of his game that, might end up saving his career, to be honest, if he can figure that out. Sterling Shepard looks great. Kenny Golladay, 3 catches. I don't know why you give a guy $70 million to essentially do nothing on the field. Another confusing deal, but it is what it is. I want to jump to our week 2 predictions, starting with the Raiders and the Steelers. 2 1-0 teams after week 1, 2 teams that, maybe aren't as highly valued as some people think they, or maybe as what they could be. I don't know. I'm going to stop talking. What do you think on this one?
I'm going to go with the Steelers. Picked against them last week. Don't really see him in Heinz Field to what I think is an inferior Raiders team. But like we said, the Raiders are really weird. Who knows? But I'm going to go with the Steelers. I think that defense is much better than Baltimore's. I think, I think they won't have the hardest time against Derek Carr and the Raiders offense. But I'll just go with that home field advantage. I'll go with the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Steelers as well. I think, the Raiders had a great game week 1, but offensively, they really got it done. And I don't think they're going to have that similar success. We saw what the Steelers defense did to Josh Allen. They shut him down, and that's going to be the case here. There's no Josh Jacobs as well for the Raiders, who I truly believe is an integral part of that offense. Kenyon Drake will be there, obviously, but he's just not the same kind of player as Josh Jacobs is. For the Steelers, I think this will be a great game. I think this will be a good game for Najee Harris. I do believe he's going to be able to get it going this week. We saw the Ravens running backs. They had a lot of success last week, as well as Lamar Jackson. So I'm expecting Najee Harris to play good. I'm expecting the Steelers receiving core to also play a lot better. That Raiders secondary is not that talented. We just couldn't really see them really get, tested last week with Lamar Jackson, obviously not a huge thrower of the football. So Steelers here, we'll both pick that. Should be a good game, though. I could see the Raiders winning. Could be a weird one. This should be a good game as well. Niners, Eagles. Niners pulled out that week 1 win against the Lions, which was a lot closer than it really was. Obviously, some garbage time at the end. But what do you think on this one? Do you think your Birds can pull this one out?
Against my better judgment, I'm going to say yes. I don't know, man. I think the link is going to be rocking. I think there's going to be a lot of hype behind. This is really just a gut feeling pick, emotion. But I don't know. I just think Jalen Hurts gets it done. I think the 49ers are really, really banged up. That's an evergreen state. That's really an evergreen statement. I think, the splits from before they lost Jason Verrett last week to after they lost Jason Verrett last week are really telling. That's when the Lions started to mount what would have been an absolutely insane comeback. But yeah, I think that Niners defense is a little weak at the back. And like I said, I'm really just not that, I didn't say it, but I'm really not scared of a Jimmy G at quarterback. I think we're going to have struggle. That's probably going to come back to bite me. I think we might struggle with Deebo Samuel a little bit because he's a fantastic player. He's also on my fantasy team. Yeah, I would like to see I think the Birds are going to pull it out. Don't think they're going to lose at home. First game back with a full stadium. It's basically what I'm picking off of.
Yeah, I think Eagles fans are going to come down to reality after this one. I'm going to go with the 49ers here. Look, Eagles had a great week 1 performance. You can't deny it, but you're playing the Atlanta Falcons. That's a bottom 5 team in this league. The 49ers are a playoff team, in my opinion. They've got a very good defense. You can bring up the Verrett stats. I do believe that's a big injury, but it's also garbage time. I think that has to play some role into it. I just think the 49ers are going to be a very good team. We're going to see what happens at running back if it is Elijah Mitchell, or I believe that's his name, Elijah Mitchell. Maybe Trey Sermon gets work in there. Deebo Samuel looked great. Brandon Ayuk was a non-factor, but they got George Kittle too. I mean, George Kittle is going to be a very big threat in this game, I feel. And I just feel like that defense, even a little banged up, is still going to be a much tougher threat for that Philadelphia offense. And hey, they proved me wrong this week. They go out and put on a good performance. This is a team that can be looked at as a very serious threat in the NFC East, but I got to see them go up against and dominate against a good team before I pick them. So I'm going to go Niners. I just think they are a good team. And I know people hate on Jimmy Garoppolo, but it's a guy who led their team to a Super Bowl. Regardless of that, what you think of that defense, that offense was good that year, and it was efficient. So Jimmy G can get it done. Texans, Browns, I think I speak for both of us. This will probably both be a Brown sweep here. Personally, I don't think the Texans will be able to carry that success that they had against Jacksonville this week to Cleveland. Cleveland's a tough place to play in, and it's just not going to be the same level of team. The Browns are a very, very good football team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go with the Browns. I'd just like to throw it back to that San Francisco thing. You mentioned Brandon Ayuk. I think that's gonna be one of the most interesting things to track about today's game, because Shanahan came out in the media. He said just because where we drafted him, he's not gonna play every guy, so I've outperformed him. So we'll see how that carries today. But yeah, I'll go with the Browns. I think they're in a different tier of team than the Texans. Texans looks good. I think Jacksonville's probably the worst team in the league. It's probably the thing I'm gonna say after week one. But yeah, the Browns are in a totally different tier than the Texans. So this will be,
Yeah,
again, it's not even close, in my opinion.
yeah, like you said, Jacksonville, the team we're going to talk about right now. Trevor Lawrence, very bad week one. He looked terrible, to be honest. Not what you expected in a number one overall pick, who some people said was one of the greatest college prospects of all time. And I disagreed with all of that at the time. So I'm going to float. And as long as he keeps playing bad, I'm going to, say that, I told you so. But this one is going to be the Broncos. They look good week one. Teddy B looked good. The running tack was efficient. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams did pretty good there. They did lose Jerry Jeudy, but you still got Cortland Sutton. You still got guys like Tim Patrick, other guys to mix and match in there. Noah Fant was good. And that Denver defense is going to be an even bigger test for Trevor Lawrence. So if he couldn't get it done against that weak Houston defense, I just think there's no way that he can get it done against Denver.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Denver here too. I don't know. I think you're a little harsh on Trevor last week. I think he had those 3 picks, but I think he did show some flashes. I think it's going to be very hard for him to play behind that offensive line. I think plain and simple, we talk about young quarterbacks struggling behind bad offensive lines all the time. I think this is another case that I think their defense really isn't very good at all. I don't think Urban is built for the NFL level. I think he's showed it again. He's shown it before. I think he's going to show it again. And that USC job might look pretty enticing for him at a certain season. But yeah, I'll go with the Broncos with that defense. They're very strong defense.
Bradley Chubb expected back today as well. Should be very interesting to see. Saints Panthers NFC. Oh my God, what division is it? NFC South matchup. Forgot the division there. Sam Darnold, he beat those Jets week one. CMC looked very good in his return. Saints looked very good as well, though. So what are your thoughts? Who's going to pull this one out?
I'm gonna pick the Saints. I was going back and forth in this all week, but I don't think the Panthers look that strong against a Jets team who I actually picked to win, but I can acknowledge they're a very bad team. Sorry to say, Griff. But yeah, I'll go with the Saints. I think, I'm not a huge Sam Darnold guy. This game will really depend on whether McCaffrey can sort of carry that Panthers offense and, keep them up with, Jameis and the other guys. But I think that Saints defense is really strong. I think the Saints have really traditionally owned the Panthers the past couple of years as well. I think so that plays sort of a psychological factor as well. And I think that the coaching matchup really isn't fair at all because Sean Payton compared to Matt Rule, a guy who's been highly criticized by a lot of Panthers fans, last year as well as even the first game of last year, despite their victory. So I'll go with the Saints here.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Saints too. I mean, this is kind of one of those picks that you feel like the gut's telling you the Panthers, but I was really impressed week one with the Saints, and I feel like I just can't pick against them right now after that game. The Panthers, they played a Jets team that's really bad. I said that before week one. I know you picked Jets, but I did not think the Jets were going to be very good, and the Jets ended up playing them pretty close for most of that game. It was a competitive game, so I think if that's the case, I mean, the Saints are going to come in here and be able to really dominate them. CMC was very good last week. He had a ton of scrimmage yards, I think well over 100, 30 total touches. So, I mean, besides touchdowns, you can't really expect more out of CMC than what he did in that Jets game. And I think it'll only be tougher for him against the Saints. So if they can shut down CMC a bit, should be an easy win for the New Orleans Saints. Rams, Colts, I'll start. I think this is easy. I love the Rams. I think that week one really showed. I think this is the top 2 team in the NFC right now. They are such a good offense. They're such a good defense. Colts, I still believe they're going to be a good team, but this is just a tough matchup. I liked what Jonathan Taylor showed fantasy-wise. I have him in one of my leagues. He had very good volume and work. But the Rams, to me, are just going to be too much to handle. So give me the Rams. I'm really high on the Rams, especially after week one. I know we didn't touch on it. Very good performance from Matt Stafford.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Rams as well here. I think they're gonna. I think the quarterback. The 2 quarterbacks aren't on the same tier here. I'll go. I'm just gonna roll with the Rams because, like you said, I think they're an excellent team. Going to, I think, what is a mediocre Indianapolis team.
Yep. Bills, Dolphins. Dolphins pulled out a week 1 win against New England. Tua looked all right. I don't think he looked amazing. He looked, maybe good for his standards at this point. Jalen Waddle had a good game. And the Bills, they're going to look to bounce back. The Dolphins defense, no easy task, though. So what are your thoughts on this one at the Hard Rock?
I'm actually going to pick the Dolphins. I've been going back and forth on this all week. Against like I said earlier, it's against my better judgment. But yeah, I'm going to go with Buffalo. I just think, or Miami. Sorry. I'm going to go with Miami. Maybe that home field advantage. I don't know, something about this game. I think, that it's a very good Dolphins defense might be able to shut, be able to limit Josh Allen, like this, similar to what the Steelers did last week for, maybe a not so strong quarterback like a Tua, like a Ben Roethlisberger. And maybe that defense can slow down just enough to get Tua, get that team a victory. So I'm going to go with the Dolphins.
I was considering picking the Dolphins even right now, kind of going back and forth, but I'm going to roll with the Bills here. You look at that game last week in Buffalo late in the season. These two teams played, and it was nowhere near close. It was an absolute blowout. Tua played terrible. So, I'm going to go Buffalo. I think they're better than that week 1 performance. I think Josh Allen's going to have a much better performance here. I think we'll see Stephon Diggs probably play better, even though it's a tough matchup. And I think offensively, Miami, I'm just not sold on this team. I think they've got the pieces. Jalen Waddle should be good. Will Fuller is still not going to be playing. He's got personal issues. So hopefully everything is all good with that. But, with the Dolphins, I think they're a much better team than people give them credit for. But if you have to mute yourself, Rob, go ahead. And, I will take the Bills in this one. Next matchup, Patriots-Jets. This isn't even a question for me. This is New England. The Jets are a very bad football team. Zach Wilson looked all right week 1. Moments are good, moments are bad. But outside of him, there's really not much good on this Jets team. They do have, I believe Jamison Crowder will be playing this week, so that should help. Corey Davis looked pretty good, to be honest. But the running attack is poor. The defense is poor. So New England should be able to win. Mac Jones looked all right week 1. He kind of did his job. Wasn't too impressive, but wasn't bad. So give me the not the Jets. Give me the Patriots in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to roll with the Pats too. I think this is sort of a game where we're going to figure out how Mac Jones is going to perform this year. What are the expectations for him? Because I don't think this is a very strong defense. I don't really think they're very strong anything. I think this game has the potential to not really be all that close. I'm interested to see what Mac Jones does in a game like this against a defense, that Patriot offense really should feast on.
Yeah. Should be interesting to see. Bengals Bears. This is a weird matchup. I know who I'm going to take though. So I'll start with you. Who are you thinking in this one?
I'm going to go with the Bears actually here. I think you might see some Justin Field drives today. I really do. Bill Lazor, the offensive coordinator, seemed to be calling for a little, throwing some subtle shots at Matt Nagy and the personnel during his post-game interview. So I think you might see more than just the occasional gadget play because, the guy they're sticking with, you can understand if it was maybe some generationally good or even just good quarterback. But we're talking about Andy Dalton. We're seeing, one of the best quarterbacks in terms of talent in college football the past couple of years for Andy Dalton. So I think this might be the game you see some Justin Fields in there. I don't know about the whole game, but a couple of drives if the Bears offense is struggling. So I'm going to go with the Bears.
I'm going to go Bengals. I was really impressed with Joe Burrow week 1, as well as Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon looked fantastic week 1. He played a very good game. And Jamar Chase looked very good. That was a question mark. T. Higgins, he looks good. This team has weapons on that offense. The O-line, is the one concern. And in terms of defense, they added some pieces that they're not going to be amazing, but they don't have to be amazing this week. They're playing the Chicago Bears, where Andy Dalton's the quarterback. David Montgomery is a huge piece to watch, though. He played fantastic week 1 against that Rams defense. I think he's evolving into one of those premier running backs in the league, to be honest. He's really impressed me so far, but I will go Bengals. I just feel like they're the better team. And maybe the Bengals are a sleeper in this AFC North. Maybe they'll be able to pull some weird strings together. Who knows? This next one, Falcons Bucks. I'll go Bucks. I don't think this will be a close game. The Bucks are just an elite NFL football team led by the greatest quarterback of all time. Shouldn't be a close game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bucks in the blowout. Falcons are really bad. Bucks are really good. Pretty simple.
And not much to talk there. Vikings, Cardinals. Vikings, I mean, this could be one of those games where I have a gut feeling, and I think I would have if I wasn't as impressed with the Cardinals as I was week one, but I will go Cardinals here. That week one performance was something else from Kyler Murray, and you're playing a Vikings defense that shouldn't be much better. DeAndre Hopkins should be able to have a insane game. This is a revenge game, you could say, for Pat Pete. So we'll see what happens there, but I expect a big game out of D-Hop, out of Kyler, and I think that Cardinals defense will be able to contain Dalvin Cook. But I mean, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, that could be a little dangerous. I don't know. That kind of makes me want to swing Vikings, but I will stick Cardinals. I think they're the better football team.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with the Cardinals. I think they're a lot more talented. I just think the Vikings are sort of falling apart. I think there seems to be a lot of discontent in that locker room. A lot of riffs. You got Mike Zimmer calling out guys for a variety of reasons publicly. I think the Vikings it might be in for a rough season here. So I'm gonna go with the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that one going Vikings. They kind of tend to win those games sometimes. But Titans, Seahawks, this could be a very good game. Two high-powered offenses where two defenses not so good. So this should be a high score. What do you think in this one?
I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I think it's always really hard to pick against the Seahawks when they have that 12th man at home. And I also think they're just a better team than the Titans. I think the Seahawks are a very, very good football team. I think they're being discounted in the NFC a little too easily just because, I think we have seen them collapse a lot over the years, but I think they're going to have a very solid season. I think they're a much better team than the Vikings than the Titans. Sorry. And I think Russell Wilson might enjoy, some time picking apart that defense. Him and Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf should have a great day fantasy wise and in real life. So I'm going to go Seahawks.
I'm going to go Seahawks. Well, I know we've agreed a lot today. We've only picked 3 games different so far, but I agree. I mean, I think the Seahawks team is going to be pretty good. I don't know if they'll be a Super Bowl contender just because I just don't think they're that complete. But in terms of this game, both high-powered offenses, when you look at the defensive side, Seahawks have the better players at the end of the day. They have Jamal Adams, Bobby Wagner, where Titans really just have Bud Dupree, and a bunch of guys who we have no idea. They've some some talented guys there, no doubt. But I do think that Russell Wilson will be able to carve it up. I think Ryan Tannehill was not impressive week one. He's gonna have to be a lot better. And I think this will be a real good showing of how this Titans offense will be this year. If they struggle in this game, I'm very worried about them because this offense should be expected to score a lot today, be very efficient. So if they struggle today, I mean, I think we might have to revisit that AFC South pick, to be honest. But, AFC South could turn into a bad division. Seahawks, I will stop rambling a little bit and pick them here. All right. Cowboys, Chargers. This could be a very good game. Cowboys have kind of lost a lot of guys since we last talked about them. Lyle Collins is going to be out 5 games. He's suspended. DeMarcus Lawrence is injured. They don't have Michael Gallup. I mean, they've lost a lot of guys. Chargers looked good week one. What do you think will pull out in this one?
I'm going to go with the Chargers just for the reasons you'd listed. I think the Cowboys are decimated. DeMarcus Lawrence is so important for that defense, which we already know really isn't very good. And losing their best player, I think inarguably their best player, it is really going to hurt them. I think that Lyle Collins injury is massive. And I think people, underrate the impact that Michael Gallup has on that offense. He's a very, very, very good third wide receiver, arguably the best wide receiver 3 in the league. I think Justin Herbert is going to tear this defense apart. I think their secondary is so bad still. And I just think this is just a day where Justin Herbert's going to further himself as, maybe I am in that conversation for the best quarterbacks in the league. I think Dak's going to have a good day. I think he's going to do everything he can to keep them in. I think the Cowboys offense probably going to have a pretty good day, but I just don't really see them beating the Chargers, even with the Chargers not really having that home field advantage, because you'd imagine that stadium is going to be mostly populated by Cowboys fans today.
Yeah, Chargers, I'm going to go with them too. I mean, this is a team that I've kind of been on for the past few years and was really high on, and they've just suffered from injuries, but they're healthy right now. They've got their main guys. So until they don't, I'm going to ride with them. I think this is a 10-plus win team in this league right now. I think they're very good in the quarterback position. Justin Herbert versus Dak Prescott is going to be a very interesting matchup. Dallas offense should be good. We'll see what Zeke can do this week against a much more favorable matchup. Obviously, he should be able to, be more involved, and we'll see what he can exactly do. But I'm gonna go Chargers here. I do like them a lot. This Sunday night game, though, before we get to the massacre that might occur on Monday night, should be very good. Chiefs Ravens. I mean, I feel like we always have this game each year, prime time, Sunday night, Chiefs Ravens in Baltimore. Seems like this has become a yearly occurrence. And last year we saw the Chiefs commit a murder almost in Baltimore. That was a blowout. So, do you think it will go similar to last year, or do you think the Ravens will be able to flip the script and pull off an upset in this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Chiefs here. I think, like I said, they took care of a very elite team who played some of their best football last week. And I think the Ravens at the moment seem to be very mistake prone, very sort of not very careful with the football, a lot of stupid mistakes. And a team like the Chiefs, a team that's as elite as the Chiefs, is always going to take advantage of that. I think Lamar might have a pretty good game against, an average defense. But at the end of the day, I'm not picking against the Chiefs. I think if they're just so dominant, I can't pick against them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Chiefs here too. I'm not gonna make that. I mean, I wouldn't even call it a mistake last week. I really think I'm high on the Browns, and I think they're gonna be a really elite team this year. But this week, I mean, Ravens right now just decimated with injuries as a whole. Their secondary got worse with Marcus Peters. You saw the Raiders put up 34 points on them. It should just be a tale of what's going to happen. The Chiefs, they're going to be as good as usual. Look at last week. We talked about it. Pat Mahomes is just so good, so elite. Nothing he can do there. So I won't really touch on this one further. I think the Chiefs should be able to win this one with, maybe not as high as last year, but should be a, pretty good win for them. And then lastly, Packers, Lions, actually looked better than I thought. They used DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams really well, and TJ Hawkinson as well had a major game. Packers, I mean, they're coming off a struggle, but I'm going to go Packers here. I think they're the better team. They're still a playoff team, and they should be able to rebound nicely. This is this is a great matchup to have at home after a week like that, where they can really look at it and kind of go, hey, we can get a real good chance to rebound and take off for the season. So I'll take Green Bay. I expect a big game out of Devontae Adams. I think Aaron Jones will play very well as well.
Yeah, I'll go Green Bay here as well. I don't think this game's going to be particularly close. I think these teams are in totally different leagues. But I don't know. Maybe the Lions will compete. I was impressed by, the fight they showed last week. But Green Bay, I think this is, like you said, a really good opportunity for a bounce back week. I think you're going to see Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams a little pissed off about last week. And then, unfortunately, they're going to take that anger out on the Detroit Lions secondary. So I'll go Packers, yeah.
Jeff Okudah also out for the season with, I forget maybe a ruptured Achilles, something very serious. So prayers out to him. But with that, I think that will do it for this week's episode of Outside the Arena. We hope you guys enjoyed. If you are new here, please drop a subscribe. We'd really appreciate that. We're trying to grow the channel and whatnot. We'll have some guests on hopefully in the future, but we'll keep doing these weekly predictions for you. Make sure to check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at Outside the Arena there. Check us out on Instagram at Outside the Arena Podcast. Check out our Instagrams. That's all going to be in the bio as well as everything. So everything you need, check the link in the description for that. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, do all that. We love putting these episodes out. We'll keep doing them weekly for you. And with that, stay safe. Enjoy another week of NFL football. And yeah, we'll see you next time on Outside.